the file you're going to need is Project 3 template. So that will download a zip file, and inside of that is this folder here. And inside of that folder is an HTML page called Project 3 HTML. And this is going to be your actual project page. So this is the template. And then inside of here are just a couple of example images for the demo. So when you're ready to put yours in, get rid of these and put all of yours in. For now, all I want to do is just add this to my site folder. So put that. So I'm going to pull this whole thing in, and then I am simply going to remove template from the folder name. So it's just called Project 3, and now we are ready to rumble. Let's go back over to Dreamweaver, and then in here I need to change to my Comm 380 Monday. Here we go. And there is Project 3. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and open up the Project 3 HTML. And here we go. So as a refresher, let me just quickly wing you through the example site again. And so this will just go on for 26 images. So you can see it's very modular. Every module is exactly the same, except the picture changes and the text changes. And so you'll see in the template that there is very definite structure set up for that and very definite styles set up. In this case, I've set this up to be rather, conservative, boring, and that means that you can go ahead and change this however you want. Now, the one thing I haven't added in here, and I should, is I'm requiring you to add a link to this page either at the bottom or at the top that will, and preferably both, that will take you back to the home page. So you're going to have a link from your home page to this, and then you need to insert a link into the template, the text link, into the template that will take you back to the home page. So that's written in the project sheet. Okay, so that's what we're building. And this right here is the first piece of that. And so first thing first, I need to walk you through the code so that you can understand the structure that you're going to be modifying. And so start here, down here at the body. And so there is a wrapper. And remember what the wrapper is. It's a container that wraps around all of the content on the page. And then inside of the wrapper is the header. And inside of the header is an H1, which is this text here. And actually, I need to get out of live view, although I'm going to go back to it in a minute. And so, let's see, so there's the header, there's the H1, and then there is another box called content. And so that's going to hold all of the basic modules for each letter. And so the wrapper holds everything. The container is just going to hold these individual modules. And then finally, here's the part you need to be most concerned about. And by the way, this gray type here, those are comments. And the correct term for that is commenting something out. And to create a comment, all you need to do is mark something. And then in the side tool area over here, you should see two word balloons. And the top word balloon gives you the choice of applying an HTML comment or this /* comment, which you can use in CSS. Since this is HTML, I can just choose HTML, and you'll see what it does is it puts angle brackets, exclamation mark, and a couple of dashes on either side of it, and that is called a comment. And the benefit to this is that you can make things invisible to the browser, but it's not invisible to you. And so I'm going to undo that because I really don't want that invisible. And so all of this gray copy in here, I've put in there to help you understand what is doing what. If you find this confusing, you can just delete those gray comments. Just be careful not to delete something that isn't gray. So anyway, this is the module for letter A. The alphabet box is a containing box, and it contains all of the content for one letter, in this case, A. Here's the div. So this is the big letter. Okay. So if I click on div, you'll see that, well, it didn't mark it for some reason. Works sometimes it doesn't. There you go. So the div for the class letter. And then here's the H2 inside of it, which is just the type there. And then here's a div for the pick. And you'll see it has margin on the left and the right. And then here is the div that holds all the text over here. And then inside of the text div is an H3, which is the subhead, and a P element, which is the body copy. And so basically subhead and body copy are currently the content for that, but obviously you'll replace that with your content, with whatever it is you want to write for your copy. And so anyway, these gray comments just kind of explain that. And then here is the bottom tag for alphabet. And again, it's not marking the whole thing, which is irritating. There we go. There we go. All right. So this module here, from this opening div tag to this closing div tag, is what you're going to be copying when you're ready to do each additional letter. So we'll do that before we finish the demo today. So they're very self-contained, very modular, but you got to be careful just making sure that you are copying the correct content and then pasting that content into the correct place. But this is about styling, first of all. So that's the structure. The styling, let's move up here. Fair amount of styling going on. So there's our style element. Here's the wrapper. And as with everything we're going to do in this class, it has a fixed size. So it's not responsive. It's not going to change size depending on what type of device you're viewing it on. It will just always be this size with a width of 960 pixels. The margin for the wrapper is 0 and auto. So who can tell me what the 0 auto margin is doing?
Isn't it doing it for like all four sides? Or?
It is. First of all, it's shorthand, and it's even a different kind of shorthand than we did last week. And so the first number is the top and the bottom, and the second number is the left and the right. And so now the more specific question becomes, what is the auto doing? What is the function of having auto as the margin on the left and the right sides? You know this, you just don't know you know it. So here's a clue. When I change the width of the browser window here, what's happening to the wrapper? No one? It's staying centered. It's staying horizontally centered. And so the auto is what is centering the wrapper within the browser window horizontally. And so that's telling the browser, keep this space and this space identical. Automatically resize it depending on how wide the browser window is. Okay? So that's what the 0 auto is doing. 0 margin, top and bottom, automatic margin on left and right. And then I've also added padding on the bottom, which is this here. And remember the difference between margin and padding. Margin is on the outside of the box. Padding is what you put inside of a box if you're shipping a fragile glass. Header. Okay, so that's this guy up here. So you'll see the width is the same as the width of the wrapper, 960. The margin here, again with the two numbers shorthand, 60 pixels on the top and the bottom. So that's what's creating this space here and here. And then 0 on the left and the right. And then text align center, that is what's making the text be in the center of its parent element, which in this case is the header. Okay, H1, this is the H1 element, and I'm going to switch to live view now, and you'll see why. Because this is actually a web font. And I'm going to show you how to access web fonts through Dreamweaver. So I'll show you the full web font thing later in the semester. But short term, you actually have access to quite a few web fonts just through the Dreamweaver interface, which is really nice. And so this H1 element, you know, there's the margin, there's the size. This is a different type of size for the type, M. What the hell is an M? Well, an M is actually a very old typographic term. And it means the height of the height and width of an uppercase M. And so in this case, though, what it means is what is the default size of the font for the user's computer. So if you got into your browser preferences and you'll notice that in there it says, you know, your preferred type size, well, that's by default set to 16 pixels. Very few people ever change that, unless maybe grandma does because her eyesight's going. So she may change that so the type gets real big on the screen. It's a nice thing to do. Well, M is the default type size, so it becomes a relative form of spacing. And so 3.5 means that it's 3.5 times the default size. And so in my case, where I do have the default set to 16 pixels, that would be 3.5 times 16, which would be 56 pixel type. Okay, so that's 56 pixels. But 3.5 M is how you space it. Now, if grandma's computer resized this and hers was set to, you know, 24 or 32, then it would be twice that big because it's relative sizing. So we're going to start using M's more often because it's a very common way of sizing type. The font family is Source Pro Serif. So that's a web font. I'll show you how to change this in a little bit. The font style is normal. And the font weight is 300. Again, we can change that through the designer window. Next up is the content box. So that's what is holding all of the letter boxes. And I've just set the width, and this time I'm doing relative sizing here now. I've set it to 100% of whatever the parent container is. And the overflow has to do with containing the floats, just like it did last week. So don't worry about that. Alphabet. So that is the box that contains all of the information for a single letter. So that's an important one. So I've got padding top of 30 to match the padding on the bottom. I have padding on the bottom of 90 for this. And then I've got a border on the top, and this is shorthand for creating a border, where it is 2 pixel wide. It is a solid line. And this is a gray color. Okay. So Dreamweaver wrote all that. And then again, overflow, don't worry about that. The letter, that's this letter right here. So remember, everything's a box. And so the width and the height of this box is 100 pixels. It's being floated to the left. And so you remember what float does. Anyone want to be brave and tell me what floating does? I know, it's asking a lot. We just learned this last week. Okay, I'll take it off your back. Floating means that, you know, divs are block level elements. And so if you just do normal document flow, then those boxes, the A, the picture, the text block, those would be one on top of the other, because they take the full width of the parent container. Well, by giving it a float, then that forces that box to just be the size you tell it to and allows the boxes to be side by side. All right? So that's what floating is doing. So all three of these elements are being floated so they can be next to each other. And then I had to be careful with my math so that they fit in that space. And so there's the background color right here. This is that kind of warm gray. And then text align center is what's centering the letter inside of that box. The H2 is that letter, and you'll see that is also source serif pro. And the size of this is now 6M, and the color of that is white. And I've also stripped out any extra margin. Okay, so the pic, the box that the picture is in, is a width of 500, and so that's why your pictures have to be 500 pixels wide. And remember, you're going to save those for web. I haven't really specifically mentioned that. But once you've got all your pictures sized, you need to save them for web. And when you do that, you need to define what is the best image format. So again, for most of you, that's going to be JPEG. But if you've done any type of modification to it, like you have transparency in it, or say you posterize it to make it flat colors, then maybe that image format needs to be different. So that's up to you to choose the best format. So the width must be 500, but the height you'll see is set to auto. And so this is something that div boxes will do by default anyway. They'll just stretch to fit the content. But by specifying auto, I just lock it in. And that's so you can understand what's going on too. So the height will adjust depending on the height of the content, in this case, your images. The margin, 0 at the top and bottom, and 40 on the left and the right. And then that is floating too. The text box, which is over here. The width of 250, padding on the right. Remember, that's on the inside. And then that is also floating left. So they are all next to each other. So the H3, this is the font for the subhead. And then P, this is the font information for the body copy. And so this may look like long and a lot of code, but the truth is this is actually very simple and straightforward. It's just a matter of applying those styles that you want to each and every element within your page. Now what's really cool is that when I change this code, and I have multiple boxes down there, these changes will apply to all of the content of the alphabet boxes. Okay? So I write the rules once for this one place, and then as I reproduce that, copy it, it will be applied to every other box with that content underneath it. So that's pretty darn groovy. Okay, so that's what we're going to be changing. But I'm happy to say you don't have to change it here in the code. You can if you want, but I want to show you something pretty neat. Put you back up at the top. And so one of the tabs I had you not close down was something called CSS Designer. So over here on the right, you have your files, your insert, and we're going to use this third tab now. So click on CSS Designer window. And yours will hopefully look like mine. You have sources. We'll talk about that later. At media, you'll learn about that in the advanced class. And then selectors, you know what selectors are. Selectors are wrapper, header, H1, content. So remember, there's 3 different kinds of selectors. Header is a tag selector, native HTML element. This is an ID selector with a hashtag in front of it. How many times can you use an ID selector? Somebody be brave. Even DJ, you're not going to be brave today, DJ?
I'm thinking on it. I'm really thinking on it.
Okay. Well, let me give you a multiple choice then. Class and ID. One of them can be applied to only one element. The other can be applied to as many elements as you want. So which one is which? Because that's the only difference between the two. So is ID only applied to a single element, meaning a primary container, or does it apply to multiple elements?
Multiple?
Close.
I was going to say singular.
Singular, yeah. And so the hint here, guys, is see my wrapper is an ID. And so I only need one wrapper, and that's why I made it an ID. Now go down here to alphabet. This is a class. Okay, so that's the third type of selector, is a class selector. And the reason why that is a class is because that's holding all this stuff, and I need to use that 26 times. And so that's why you use a class as opposed to an ID. So even though they're really similar to each other, there's distinct reasons for using either one. So all of those selectors that are over here in the code that I'm pointing to with my hand that you can't see are listed right here under the selectors category in your CSS Designer window. So wrapper, and it will even highlight the code for you as I click on these. So if I click on header, it shows you the header rules over in the code, H1, content, etc. So that's pretty neat, right? Now what's even neater, or neatest, is that look what happens down here in the properties window. So remember, each one of these lines are properties and values, right? And so the property here is margin, font size, font family. Well, that's what this window is showing. And so if I click on the H1 element, it's showing me all the properties that are being applied. But if I click the show set, right now it's showing me all the possible properties. But if I click show set, it only shows me the properties that have been set. So that's what the show set means. It means show the properties that have been set only. And so right here I can look at this and I can see, oh, well, my margin has been set to 0 on every side. I can come down to the font family. Oh, look, it's source serif pro. Font style is normal. The font weight is 300. And the font size is 3.5 M. So you see these highlighting. What that means is I can change these over here in this window. This is a whole lot easier than typing code. And so if I go down each one of these, you'll see that it's going to show me all the various settings for each one of these selectors. So today we're just going to deal with modifying settings using this. But with our next project, Project 4, you're going to use this to actually be creating your CSS code over here. So we're going to go, all the way through where CSS is really writing almost everything. So that's pretty neat. So I'm going to go up here to the header, because one of the first things I'd like to do is actually H1. I take it back. I want to change this typeface right here so I can show you how these web fonts work, which is pretty fun. And so with the H1 selected here in the selectors area, then I can come down here to properties, and where it says font family down here. Now I'm worried this is going to be hard for you guys to see, and I'm sorry. But if I click on where it says source serif pro, it will drop the menu that allows me to, at the top, choose a font stack. But down here, I have a bunch of other fonts showing. Now you won't. You won't have anything in here because you haven't added any fonts, web fonts, to this. So what you're going to do is pull all the way down to the bottom, and it says Manage Fonts. And then that brings up this window, which is kind of small. You can't make it any bigger. And most likely, by default, Adobe Edge Web Fonts on the top left will be selected, has the blue line under it. And then this is going to show you all of the web fonts that you have available. So what does a web font mean? Well, a web font means that the user's computer does not have to have that web font for it to show up and look like it's supposed to. Why is that? Well, because that font is being downloaded, from this case, from the Adobe server. It's going to the Adobe server and it's saying, I want to download this font and use it in this web page. And so that happens when the page initially loads. It's very quick. And so have you ever been to a site where the type will show up, but it's kind of a plain type like Times Roman, and then all of a sudden it will change to a nicer looking font? That's a case of a web font loading. Initially, you're just seeing generic kind of system type, and then the download completes for the web font, and that's when it shows. So that's what this is going to be doing. And so I'm just going to show you how to do this. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but let's say I'm going to do Alpha Slab 1. It's a really bold font. And when I click on it, that adds this little blue check mark. Okay, so that means it's selected. It's going to add it to my list. I'm going to click Done. You know what? I'm going to uncheck All, and that will make my list be smaller. No, it won't. I thought I had a good trick there. I didn't. So I'm going to click Done, and nothing's going to change. That's because all I did by going there was add it to the list. But now when I go back to font family again, you'll notice that Alpha Slab 1 is part of my list now. And now if I choose this, it will change it in the code, and it will also change it in my page. Now let me show you what this looks like if I'm in Design View. And so this is a little confusing, because I'm telling you to work in Design View because I want you to see the boxes, but you can't see the web font in Design View because Design View is not accessing the internet, so it's not going to the internet, Adobe's server, to get the font. So if you want to see your font, you either have to preview it in a browser or you have to switch to Live View, and then it will go to the internet and download and load the font. So where I'm going to go, I'm going to look, normally puts it after the rules. Yeah, so right here, this is that web font. And so basically it's saying go to this web server, use.edgefonts.net, and then it has information that relates to the fonts that are going to be downloaded. So you don't need to understand this code, but you do need to understand that this is going to show up in the head of your code and that you don't want to mess with it. It says right here, we recommend that you do not modify it because you'll break it. So that is a web font, and you can use as many as you want in this very easily through the CSS Designer. Back up here, people. Okay, so that's one thing I can change. Another thing I can change is the background color. So right now the background color is white. And what element am I going to typically attach a background color to? What fills the entire window of the browser? What element?
Block element?
Close, body element. And so the body element is going to, it's just everything that shows in the browser window. Now, we don't have a rule for the body element. So I'm going to go ahead and add one here so you can see how to do it. It's quite easy. You can also just type it in if you're more comfortable with that, but do not do it with HTML, okay? CSS only. And so I'm going to go to selectors, and I'm going to click the plus sign because I want to add a new selector. And that new selector is body, B-O-D-Y. So remember, it's a tag, so no dot, no hashtag. And hit the enter a couple of times, and it will add that down to the bottom of the code. I'll probably end up moving that to the top, which is a more logical place. But actually, I can drag it up right here in the window. Isn't that handy? Yes, it is. It's really handy. So now with body selected, you'll see there's nothing in my properties window. And that can be confusing, but that's very simply because I have show set checked. And so it's only showing the properties that I have set, and I haven't set any. So I'm going to uncheck that. And then I'm going to scroll down. This is just a big, long scrolling window. And these little icons at the top will actually help you get to the different areas more quickly. And this one takes you to the background area, which is right where I was. And so here's the background, and then background color. So I can go here, click on this little box, and guess what? It brings up the color picker. How nice is that? And so then I can go in here with the color picker, and unfortunately I have blue all over here, but I'm just going to roll over this until I find a color I like. And it actually is seeing the blue. Okay, well that's kind of dumb, but I'll leave it like that for now. Here, let me just click out of here. There, let's get rid of the blue and try this again. So back to the body, back to the background. Quit marking that. God, you stupid thing. Okay, well, I'm just going to adjust it here. So I'm going to make this more of a neutral gray. Perfect. Boom. And so there you go. I've just changed the body color. And so you can make the body color be anything you want. You can also go in and do a background image if you want. Now, I don't really recommend that because that's going to give you a very busy background, which is going to make it very hard for you to read your type. So if you do that, use a really, really light image so that you don't affect the readability of the type. But that is an option too. So that's pretty neat. What else can you change? Well, I can change this line right here. So this line is actually part of the alphabet box. And so I can go here, find the alphabet. Yeah, see, here's that border top right there. So if I come over here to the alphabet box, click Show Set, then I can find the border down here. And there's different little tabs. I put a border on the top. So I click on the Border Top tab. And I can change the line style from solid to, I don't know, groove. I'm feeling groove. And then I can make this bigger. Let's make this like 6 pixels. And then the color of this, that's pretty butt ugly. So let's make the color of this, I don't know, I don't really like that border at all. Make it very light blue. Oh, there you go. So you can see the rule is very light blue, but I'm going to change that. I'm not digging the groove. There's double. That's better. But actually, I'm going to choose dotted. Love the dotted. Okay, so there we go. So easy to change the rule type. So that's another option you have. I can go in here and I can change the color of the letterbox. And so that's another reason I labeled these, is I can go here and say, oh, okay, that's the box I want to change. And then you come over here, choose letter, and then this is background color on that box. So say I would really prefer to make that be dark blue-gray. Boom, it is now a dark blue-gray. So I can change type styles there. I can change all this as well. I think you're getting it. It's kind of making sense, I hope. This is really kind of touchy-feely and intuitive, and I really recommend that you take an hour and just play. And if you totally mess this up, just throw it out and download another one. But just play and have a good time, because you'll discover all kinds of things. For instance, what if I wanted there to be a drop shadow on this? Can I do that? Well, yeah, that's getting a little bells and whistly, but yes, I can. And if I remember, it's at the background area. Look, here's the box shadow. So I can give this a horizontal shadow of, say, 4 pixels, and a vertical shadow of 4 pixels. And I can give this a blur of, let's say, 10 pixels. Make it very soft. And then I can change the color of this to be something not quite so dark. Let's make it a little bluer so everything kind of goes together. Oh, yeah. That's a little too light, Ron. There we go. That's better. Pretty neat, right? And oh, look, what's this inset button do? Oh, my God. Wait a minute. Oh, cheese and rice. That's amazing. So this is the type of stuff you'll discover. Is you'll discover some of the really fun stuff that's in CSS, stuff that you want to be very careful about because it can get really busy and garish, but done tastefully and in furtherance of an idea. Pretty neat. I mean, can you put a drop shadow on your picture box? Yep, you sure can. So there's all kinds of options. So again, I'm not trying to get the whole class to do drop shadows. Please don't. But it's just an example of something neat that maybe you didn't know you could do and how easily you could do it. Okay, any questions about how to change the styles or anything I've done here?
Do you think you could show again how you got to all of the different web fonts? I kind of just couldn't see it. It was just like...
Oh, of course. Yeah, let's do another one because it's so small. So yeah, let's change the font inside of here, inside the letterbox. And so that is the H2 element, the letter A. So I'm going to go to H2, choose that, and then I'm going to click on Show Set, and then I can easily find the font family. So I'm going to go here. And then to set a new font, I scroll all the way to the bottom to where it says Manage Fonts. And then that brings up this list. And you can sort the list by different kind of genres and categories, or you can just scroll through the whole thing. There's about, I think, 600 fonts in here, so it's quite a bit. But let's see something. A script does not work well in the box. I will tell you that up front. Okay, Berkshire Swash. That doesn't really want to go with the top one, but whatever. Just choose it. So there, Berkshire Swash, I've chosen. Click Done. And again, nothing changes because all I've done is add it to my font list. Then I can go back to my font list, find Berkshire Swash, and select it, and then it will change. So it's quite simple, and you will be shocked at how many really great fonts are in here. And so, yeah, so have fun. Just play and have fun, and you can make this be really neat. So your goal is to not have this look like my example very much. I mean, it will look like it because it's pretty strongly formatted, but in terms of the colors and typefaces and, you know, other little decisions you need to make, you know, make it your own. Have a good time with it. I'd rather see you do something totally garish than do something totally boring. Okay? I'd always much rather be shocked, appalled, or confused than bored. So, you know, while I want you to do good visual communication, you know, nice design and have good aesthetics, I'd rather you err on the side of doing too much than just being lazy. Okay? So have fun and push it. Okay, any other questions before I go on to the next and final step? Okay. Next up is going to be, okay, I've got my A done. I really like the way it looks. How do I make a B? Well, I'm going to go down to my HTML code into the body. And this is where hopefully my comments will help you out. And so end tag for alphabet. It says right down here, copy and paste letter A div alphabet here to then modify and create the letter B. Okay? And then here is the letter A. So really, if you just copy it from here to here, that's what you need. But might I recommend you do this? Copy it, if you don't mind the comments, copy it from where it says letter A all the way down to end tag alphabet. And then you're going to be guaranteed that you have everything you need. Then I can copy this. I'm just going to do a Command C. And then I'm just going to paste right over this. And then I'm going to change this letter A comment to say letter B. And so if you have those comments going all the way down, if you want to make a change on letter P, all you have to do is scroll down and look at your comments. It's easy to find where you need to be. So here you can see it copied it, an exact copy. Obviously, it is not the content I need, so I need to go ahead and change this to a B. I need to change my subhead. I need to change my body copy. And again, you can copy and paste those from a Word document. And then, you notice all of the styles are applied to this. Oh, I need to get a new picture in here. So this is a neat trick, another neat trick. I'm going to click on this picture, and then I'm going to right-click on the picture. And remember that I'm in live view, and that doesn't work in live view. So let me change it back to design. Okay. and click on the image and then right click on it, and you'll see on the top, second one down says source file. So I can either go change the source down here in the properties window at the bottom, or I can right click on this picture and choose source file, and it will let me navigate to the picture I would like to replace it with. And just like that, I've got my new photo in, automatically writes the code for me. Life is pretty. So another nice trick. If you're more comfortable just deleting it and reinserting it, you think you learned better, that's absolutely fine. If you want to do it in the properties window, absolutely fine. Doesn't matter in the least, but that's a nice shortcut. Now, one question I get a lot, and I would be asking this question too, it's like, well, what if I want to change my colors on each of these boxes so that each one is different? Well, guess what? I can't. The only way I could make this be a different color than this is by writing a specific rule that attaches to only this box. So it's possible to do it, but if I wanted my type boxes to be 26 different colors, I'd have to have 26 different selectors with different color properties to make that work. So I really don't want you going there unless you're just feeling cocky and you want to try it. You can do that by adding another class name to it and then writing a rule using that class name. I'm not going to tell you any more than that. But I really would prefer you just let the style cascade through the whole document. But say I do decide, you know, I really don't like that blue-gray box here. That's boring. Well, just remember, you can always go back and change it. So that's the letter box. And just say I want to be a little bit more daring here. Okay, let's go there, and boom. Okay, so instantly, every single instance of that is changed. What if I want to get rid of this box shadow, or I don't want it to be inset anymore? I want it to be on the outside. Well, I change it, and it changes on the outside of every single box because those rules are being applied over and over again. So I just went in and made it very subtle, which I like better. And so you can see this is the power of CSS. Is you make these decisions, you set up the rules, you apply them, and then if you want to change it, you can change the whole kit and caboodle very easily.